Um, Once you have your deep spiritual experiences early on in your life, you'll be so filled with presence it's hard to be around anyone. And in fact, it's impossible. But you do it. So as the years go on, what you learn is not spiritual, but you learn how to open up parts of your soul, your mind, your body, in order to communicate to people who are lost in hell, which the world is. It is hell. And eventually you'll perfect all of your tools. You'll understand how to communicate with anyone in any circumstance. And you'll wind up on Mount Arahat again, whatever it was Arahat? Where Moses got the 10 Commandments, where he looked at the burning bush and he asked, "Who should I say sent me?" And he said, and the burning bush said, "I am that I am." So you'll get back to that place spiritually where you will allow yourself to be the full instrument that you are, and you won't have to take it anymore. And that will take you some years, 5 years, 10, 50. It won't matter to you because you'll always be reclimbing that mountain for others. You're going back for your friends. You'll know that you lost something that you never knew you had. It could be an old friendship, an old love, something that's more important than the whole world, but the subterfuge of the world prevents us from understanding the close-knit fabric that all of us as spiritual beings have, because this is hell. This is hell. Read the text of any spiritual community whatsoever in the history of the world that's not completely nuts, and you'll find that out. Thank you. We've had visitors from the jiu-jitsu room, and my buddy, he runs the jiu-jitsu room, the door opens, so he's the champion of the last 7-8 years of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Pedro Mink, next door here, and I watch him because he has an enlightenment of the heart and soul, and so you can watch him training and teaching children. They have the young samurai from 3 to 6, and the older samurai from 6 to 12, and then they'll have all the adults, include the people in this room, that learn to be a true samurai. Like I talked about my friend Kobuhito, who's a true samurai. And what does that mean? Sure, he can use every weapon in the world with a perfection just exquisite and thrilling and chilling to watch. And he can arrange flowers, or you can throw something in, chop up some food in front of him, and he can make it look like the finest floral arrangement in the world in 3 seconds. It's just extraordinary to watch him do it. He's the sushi chef for Apple, so among other things. So, but what he has is complete quietude inside. So when I see him, I just fall down inside myself, and it's nothing to do with who he is or who I am or anyone is. It's just something utterly quiet and precious. When I look at my teacher, I melt. Susan has qualities I don't know she does not know she has, because she works so hard at fixing everything around her, humbly and respectfully. And so that's what happens. We have these enormous experiences, and then we have to learn to trust ourselves in deep reverie. There's not a difference between the thinking mind and the emotions, and everyone thinks, well, I'm thinking all these crazy thoughts. Well, you're trying to combine your thought, your emotions, and your soul together so you can find a higher, pure way to present yourself, to understand yourself, to understand our relationship with all these different areas of relationship we have. Like my friend Susan or Master G here, it's like we're in very different places in our lives. But spiritually, when you're very quiet, you're just looking from atop that mountain, and all is well. I am that I am. So I'm simply saying, to get to that place, you'll have your illumination, and then you'll spend years trying to figure out how to communicate, how to heal, to help, to teach, to inspire, to ingratiate yourself in a nice way. So you, like Walt Whitman said, that I will not let them go. Hold them close and girth them until I discorrupt them. And charge them full with the charge of the soul. So you have to learn many ways to communicate, because you become a healer and a teacher. And you're very hidden with these qualities. You'll have the experience, you'll become very quiet and circumspect, and you realize that no one really wants to hear about that, in the sense of that it's going to help them. They might say that's wonderful for you, and then not even know what the hell you're talking about. Excuse me, I got choked out in jiu-jitsu yesterday, and my throat is sore. So that'll be happening. We're a very complicated beast. Soul, emotions, thinking process, feeling process. So I'm saying, I was pointing out Susan's ability in ballet to project an emotion, this with this part of the body and that part of the body simultaneously. It's quite thrilling when people learn that particular art that includes many arts, which you encompass these ideas, you discipline your emotions, your thought, an opera, a singer would be able to discipline their breathing. You're singing from the deep diaphragmatic breathing. You have to fall down into that area, and they might look spontaneous, but they're very quiet, very quietly controlling their breath. To me, I don't know, having lived this life, I'm instantly quiet. The mind instantly quiet, and turn it off if I want. I'm not here. So for me to get back to, after 50 years later, of allowing myself to feel the full presence that I feel, so that I am not under attack all day, which I allowed to happen for 50 years, so that I can understand everything, so that I have compassion and understanding for a way to communicate with everyone where they are. Does that make sense? So you'll become enlightened, and it's not like people say, what is that new form of meditation? I forget what you call it, but it's not like knowing how to be quiet, unless you have the idea of divine providence with you. And you're doing a depossession, if you don't use the blood of Jesus, there has to be something to scare the hell out of evil, because evil is a force, though it's nothing. Although it is this world, as soon as you're illumined, it's nothing. But in order to save the people in the world, meaning illumine, you have to step back in somehow and communicate with all these different levels that you'll discover in your reverie, in your prayer, your contemplation times, where you can bridge the gap between yourself and those that are lost, that are worthy. And you'll literally try with everyone, and you'll forgive everything and everyone. And it's not forgiving them consciously, it's like you step back and you're untouched by it, because you're in that place that Kobohito is at, or Susan is at with family members. Just like, you're completely quiet. You're there for them. It doesn't matter what you think or feel or want. You're there for a child. You're there for a friend. It doesn't matter. So you're not fighting yourself to forgive. You're just not going to, the whole idea is to not engage evil. We talked about Mary Baker Eddy last week. It was Christian Science. I've known practitioners, I guess, years ago that did that, and it's effective. You might have a cold, you might have or something bad, generally, and they'll know the truth for you. But a lot of it's psychological, but it's quiet, meditative, and they're passages from the scripture, but to know the fact that evil does not exist. Therefore, you can't be sick. And they're great healers, but they have that healing presence. The doctor has, or a mom has, or a good friend has. And because she tried to work with it from her mind, it wasn't always effective. But if you fall into yourself, like Cobajito, like Susan, like Professor Mink next door, you get so quiet that you can work with the professor with little children, a little samurai. He is, they're disciplined because they want to do little 3, 5, 6-year-old children. They look like Susan almost. They're exquisite movements because he plays chess with them with his body. It's because they're at one with his heart, because that's his illumination. It's completely present with you spiritually. So we have to learn to be completely present with people spiritually, in the soul, in the mind, in the body. And then all will be well. And we can leave this damned planet. I am that I am. So that's the place you'll get. It's here, it's now, it's yours. It's heaven. It said in the scripture, who is he that ascended up into the heights, except it be he who descended into the lower parts of the earth and gave gifts unto men. So in your reverie, in your quiet, you'll do all these different self-enhancement techniques, and basically it gets down to, which is today, is just talk to him. I am that I am. In other words, God is here with us every moment, and when we're utterly quiet and we're not taking part in the everyday, we'll know him. We'll be as he is. And this won't have to be anymore. I hope this is very clear. I'm not going to live here anymore. I'm going to allow myself to live my presence while I'm here. But to get to that place, you have to climb back to the mountain. Although you're there, you're going to dive back into every circumstance, every dive bar, every cemetery, you're going to go to the graveyards and resurrect the dead. It means it's spiritually. I reached out to my grandfather I'd never seen or known anything about, and sure enough, one day just appeared to me for about 2 seconds, and that's all the communication we ever needed, because he's in heaven and everything is like that. It's perfect. And that was just one instance of thousands of people I've known, and thousands that I don't know, and millions that I came to know. When you open your heart, you'll clothe the naked, you'll feed the poor, and you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to leave your chair. You can read the works of Viktor Frankl or whatever. To open your heart, to engage the world, to become more empathetic, more spiritual, more kind. And it doesn't mean weak. Master G here is the kindest person I know, and he's a professional fighter, been a world champion in the ring many years, but he's kind. Spirituality doesn't mean weak, it means conscious. And you don't have to be tough in any sense. In other words, in any physical sense. I want to make that very clear with what I just said. It's awareness. It's your emotional structure, your psychological structure, your spiritual structure, which transcends it all. You get quiet like the opera singer, and she watches her breath, feels the abdomen expanding and releasing with her breath, and it's very, very controlled. And then you add the voice to it, and all that you have to know about that, about sound, and you're projecting it. So there's all these different aspects. It's the same with healing. And you don't learn it in a university. You learn it in your heart. I am that I am. You just want to get to that place. where it just is, where you just are. And again, there's nothing magical about it. God is here. God is a person. God is your friend. God is yourself. There's nothing missing in spirituality. God is a person. You are a person. You're the same person. Somehow you'll come to this. With your illumination, you'll know this. But it's not walking around, I'm God. It's you double up inside yourself and twist yourself around like you implode like one of those Death Star, what they call those stars that impound upon themselves. What's that called? And in humility, and it's a wonderful state. It's unimaginable ecstasy. I feel it all day of my life. Always have, always will. But I'm not here. But I gave that up to be here enough to communicate with everyone. There are millions of people like me that are spiritual. I'm simply explaining for all of us that are spiritual what this experience truly entails. It's a tremendous amount of love and kindness and compassion and affection and decency and uprightness and a very subtle kind of intelligence. They talk about mental intelligence, your IQ test, and then like Susan's is near 200, and the rest of us are dumb next to her. That's my experience with her. And spiritual intelligence is you are aware of other dimensions always. Can you imagine that? It's so wonderful. I'm speaking for the millions of us who are quite spiritual. And there are millions and millions and millions. And the way we defend ourselves against the dark forces of the netherworld is to understand, is to let go, is to fight by not fighting. In other words, in your consciousness, become so quiet, so deferential, so kind, so true. You have to learn to listen to people. That's what, but you can listen also with your body, with your emotions, like I said, with your breathing. They're every different aspect of it. It's one thing. So I'm saying, like with psychologists working on you, I have all these crazy thoughts. Well, what are they relating to with your emotions, with your soul? If you're sensitive to people around you or lost beings, you're going to feel these things. We all feel the souls of the dearly departed, right? If you don't feel your mom who passed or something, then you're dead. She's not dead, you're dead. How can you not feel these things? So think about that. Walk away from everything, separate yourself from everyone and everything, and you owe no one money, allegiance, or time. Know that first, step away. It doesn't mean you don't give yourself away, because you do. But you owe no one. I'll give everything away all the time in my life. And it might seem stupid to certain people around me, but it's not. I know exactly what I'm doing. But I don't give to fools. And if I do, it's because there's a reason that I'm very clear about in that moment. There is a God. You are as God is. If you climb that mountain and pay for all the things you might have done, my friend Kathleen or whatever, I could have done better to her or my mom or my dad or everyone. My dad was a very rough street cop. They talked about it. And as soon as he passed, he was illumined, because he was illumined when he was alive, but had to do crazy things to make a living. And so he was always unhappy because he was going against his own nature. But he had to do that to be productive in his work, to feed his family. And I'm not saying killing people to feed your family is worth it. What I'm saying, if you're killing yourself to do it, it's worth it. So like I say, we have lost something we don't know we ever had by losing illumination, our knowing that we're illumined, and then we lose all these friends and relationships. And so climbing back the mountain, you give up your illumination. That's what they talk about in the East about Bodhisattva. He waits for his enlightenment. That's all they meant. It's something quite, if you're around people like that, if I've been I've had Vental Rinpoche or so forth. If the Dalai Lama comes to California, he'll run the ceremonies and all that. He's a very high Lama and so forth. And he's just a very simple person. So, point is that you'll pay for everyone's crime by not taking part. Does that make sense? Not taking part in the world at all. I am that I am. Remember? It's just to be that quiet is, and you have to know that it's God and it's the real God, and it's very personal. You'll feel God living through you, and you'll never actually say it as I'm saying it today, because this is a teaching, this is a mission we have together to learn. But you'll be as God is, and you're infinitely humble, and even God doesn't admit to being God. And I'm talking about in universes that are transcendent of everything we've ever felt or known, because I've known them through my life. It's you get to the actual throne of grace beyond heaven. Their heavens are unimaginable, rolling oceans of something so good. There are no words, there are no thoughts, there's nothing. Very fine poetry or a mom's love can touch it, but that's about it. But you will experience it. And even there, God is inside himself with humility before you, and yet he'll give you this is your destiny. And you're off. And it might take you 50 years to live that out, and people have had these illuminations, can express this better than I do, but it's real. God's real. There's nothing wrong with you, you're real. The world is a lie, and if you get very clear on that, and it's all in your apprehension of it, your sense of it. If you quiet your senses, you feel good. If you develop your senses, I talk about an opera singer, a ballerina, any martial artist, any kind of athletics, you feel a little better and better, right? Like for me yesterday, before I went in here to roll with Professor, was like, I'm sitting in this room, right next door is, I had to prepare to work out with a champion for an hour, which is, I am learning, and this is the tiniest beginning degree, but it's rough, and it's a lot of work. It's not rough, I enjoy it, I love every second of it, but I'm here and I disappear into the presence, is where we began this with. It's unimaginable, and it's always there with me. I mean, it's never not. It's so beautiful, so wonderful. And I have to live with people. We all have to live with people and make like we're one of them, and it's, you're climbing down from the mountain into the hellhole that the world is, to communicate with your best friends, and it's what we do. So in the beginning, you'll be illumined. And it won't change anything in your relationships to people. It'll just make it more difficult. And then you'll find out who and what, and then all of a sudden you'll discover that you'll have friends that are called the teachers, I call her the angels, and they will aim you all the time. So with me, I mean, I've been aimed into horrible things as well as beautiful things, because that's what I want to do. I want to learn how to communicate with a drug addict on the street, or the cop, or the professor, or the teacher, or the mom, or the child, or the sick person. So I've been in hospitals, I've been in circumstances voluntarily that no one would ever go into, that you can't get out of, and somehow I knew I can get out of, but I did, and I don't know how I did it, but I did it. I'm saying there's nothing you won't do out of love and kindness when you're illumined. I'm just saying, please understand that that's what it is. Please join all your forces, your emotions, your soul, discipline, everything within you. And all you have to do is start talking with God the Father, who's with us every moment. And God gives himself away, becomes very subtle, and you very subtly comprehend the union of your emotions, your thoughts, your aspirations, your dreams, your time sense of people you knew back here. I see my mom and my dad laughing with smiling. And in the future, or family, look at my teacher and I melt, and like, so we're both going to the same insanity, and that's what grace is, that's what dignity is, that's what love is. But when you have this illumination experience, the one thing you're going to take away from it, and the one important thing and the only thing that means anything to you, is you will dissolve this whole world. You will walk away from it on behalf of others. And as you walk away from it, you're going to lift all those who are worthy of this. Because there's something in the middle of it called Satan, Mephistopheles, this crazy little force that doesn't really exist when you're illumined. But it's the joining force of what keeps the world together. It's something very dark, needless. Yes, you see God and beauty. You walk, you step into nature, that oneness. It comes uninvited, but it never intrudes when you walk into nature, does it? And that's because you're walking into a higher sense of reality, of spirituality, of grace, of dignity, and that's who you are. And that's it. Thank you, Mr. Skolta. You'll be as God is. When you allow God to communicate with you, to live with you, to have supper with you. When I look at my teacher, Susan, there's just God. I have no want, need, desire, because I'm looking at someone who figured everything out and can be utterly professional, utterly calm, utterly beautiful, and so there's nothing to want or need or do or not do. You can sit quietly and all of a sudden, oh, there, look at that hummingbird, or not. Or she'll see her, one of her dear pets who just passed, because they're there, because we're all here in this place. It's really, everything's okay. And everything's going to be okay with you. But you're going to be brighter than anyone and everyone in the whole world you've ever known. There are no experts in the world. No one knows a damn thing who thinks the world exists. Doesn't matter the subject matter, geometry, architecture, science, chemistry, it doesn't exist. The only expert is the illumined one. Because the world is the illusion, all of it. And the more complex it is, the more illusory. So we practice illusory discipline called meditation to discover the illusory experience of nirvana, enlightenment. And we'll let that go. And we'll be as God is. I am that I am. Thank you very much.